We are genealogists, podcasters, and genealogists. Add that to the masthead, would you, Zach?
Hi, everybody. Welcome back into Bufnagle, the podcast. I'm Zach, and as always, I'm joined by Rafe. Rafe, how are we doing today?
Hey, Zach, I'm fantastic. It is like they say, it's a great day to be alive, and it's a beautiful Sunday afternoon here in Tennessee. I've been home for a while, Zach, which is a nice feeling. Now and then, I was doing a lot of traveling, but I'm now home, and it's been nice to be in the same bed for a number of nights in a row. A couple things, Zach, before we get started. I want to say thank you to all our listeners. We've been hearing a lot of feedback on some things, and we're trying to make good use of people's feedback. So if you hear something that you've brought up that has changed, then that's your feedback coming back through to us. Keep in mind, we are on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Zippity Doodah Podcasts, whatever they're called.
Wherever podcasts are found, we can be found with them.
Yes, I think that's exactly what we wanted to say. So we are. If you can't find us out on the internet, send us a note, and we'll tell you how to get there. So we've heard some requests that maybe, hey, tell us how to make the podcast machine work for us. So if you do subscribe to places, they will send you information when we have a new episode. So use that. Zach, we have a sponsor again this week. Our friend Kayla over at Buck and Bowl Boutique. Now it's Buck, B-U-C-K, and the little ampersand, Zach. It's not the word and ampersand. Bull. Yeah, B-U-L-L. Buck and Bowl Boutique on the Facebook machine and on Etsy. Search for Kayla and get something nice for yourself. Buck and Bowl Boutique creates handmade jewelry, gifts, decor, and clothing with new items released weekly, and they always welcome custom orders. If you like nice, pretty stuff, whether you're male or female or anything in between, then feel free to head on over to Kayla's Buck and Bull shop, and she will take care of you. Tell her the Bufnagler sent you, and you'll get 15% off. I don't know where else you can get that deal, Zach, but that is a great, great deal to get.
Usually, if you mention the Bufnagle name, you're getting 15% onto that order. So, Kayla's really helping us out with that, but we appreciate her. We appreciate all our listeners, and we appreciate everyone involved with the making of the Bufnagle podcast.
Yeah, we're appreciative of a lot of things, Zach, and contrary to what some other people may be feeling, we are actually a little bit appreciative of the year 2020, and it wasn't all bad.
Yeah, so for me, 2020 was a very good year, despite the fact that the events that unfolded in 2020 as a whole were less than stellar, were not the best, and they caused a lot of issues for a lot of people, which is rightfully so. But for me, I personally took a lot away from 2020. It was a stepping stone year for myself. And additionally, even though I failed at all of the goals I set out for myself, I had only 3 and I failed and I came short of every single one. 2020 was still a very good year for myself.
Yeah. So, it's not uncommon to fail at goals. If you're setting goals and you are hitting them without any struggle, without any growth, then it probably wasn't a very good goal. So just because you don't hit your goals doesn't mean you can't keep working at them, and it doesn't mean that it was necessarily a bad effort.
Yeah. So those goals, if you complete them, good. If you don't complete them, you did things to help you complete them that help you and shape you and allow you to be in a position to be successful and move forward onto the next goal or whatever your next benchmark may be.
Yeah. So do you want to go through some of these positives that you had, Zach? Because I made a list here. I didn't really think my list would be very long, but I made a list of things that were good things that happened with me in the year. And it was a lot longer than I thought it would be when I first started. And do you want to go back and forth with that sort of thing, or how do you want to work through this?
I think we can go back and forth, have a little bit of conversation, and reflect holistically on what the year was and how we are using what we learned from the year and moving forward into 2021 and making 2021 the best year yet.
Yeah, I think we should always, if you're on what the mathematicians would call an increasing function, then we're not as good as next year, but we're better than last, right? So we want to make 2021 the best one we can be so far. I know we talked a little bit about this in our pre-production meeting about the things that you wrote down for the things that were positive for you, and the things that I wrote down that positive for me, and they are different kinds of things. My things were really accomplishments of things I did, and you had more things like to me they seem a little bit more general.
Yeah, you kind of had some celebrations of specific moments that you were focused on, that you celebrate them, and that's good to do. And those are good things to reflect on and to own. And for me, it was a lot of growth and just moving forward. I mentioned earlier, I did not complete any of my 2020 goals. I had three. It was very simple. But the first one was to pass the bar exam, which I did not. The second one was to read a book a month, which I did not. And the third one was completely outside of my control, but it was to go to New Zealand. All three of those things I did not accomplish. But the things I did to allow myself to hopefully complete those goals allowed me to do a lot more looking back on 2020.
Yeah, so I mean, and those goals are things that it's not like those goals have passed you by and never can be achieved again, right? So those things can get pushed into the new year and can become part of the new goal things. I do fewer goals personally than I probably should. I do goals at work. We all write them up for things we're supposed to achieve. But at home, I don't do that quite as much, being a little bit older than you are, but there are still things that I work on and I try to do. I had a number of things on my list here that surprised me, was the number of items in my workshop that actually completed and actually came out of the workshop as usable items.
So they weren't just scraps of wood.
Well, sometimes, woodworkers, it's very interesting if you're in the woodworking community, because one of the things that woodworkers love to do is build stuff for their workshops, which to me is giggly funny. How to build, here, we'll show you how to make a router table, or here's how to make a workbench. And I'm like, I want to make stuff that other people can use in their real life. And I had a couple big successes on that. I finished a couple kitchen tables. I was able to, there's a great company out there that I'll support, even though they're not officially a sponsor of ours. There's a group out there called tablelegs.com, and they sell guess what, Zach?
Table legs? No.
Table
Mountain
legs.
goats.
Mountain goats and table legs. And yeah, so they sell table legs, and I got some table legs from them for my table. And then they had this contest that if you took a picture of your table with the tablelegs.com table legs, they would enter this contest. And what I did was I submitted my things, and then I contacted essentially every human being on the planet that I knew had access to the interwebs. And I said, vote for me. And they went on and they voted, and I won the contest.
My friends helped you win that contest. So to my friends who support the buff and support my dad's obsession of table making, we appreciate you.
Yeah, Zach, I had a great time with the table leg people, and I made a couple kitchen tables. I did a school desk. A lady that I know here in town bought an antique elementary school desk, and I was able to get that put back together. And that was a very complicated thing. I was able to do that, and I finished a cabinet for your sister and her husband to keep stuff in their new house. So it was a really good year in the woodworking department.
So your 2020, reflecting back on it, there was, some bad, but there's also this good of you spending time in the workroom, in the logs, and in the, making sawdust and snow, and just kind of giving something to other people so that they can, continue to live life to the fullest.
Yeah, that's right. And I know a lot of people have those little hobbies and they like to do their things, but it is really interesting how much woodworkers make for other people. A lot of times they will build workbenches and rudder tables and things, but a favorite thing for woodworkers to do for Christmas presents is to take all their wood scraps from the year before and make cutting boards. And so if you get a cutting board from a woodworker, it's kind of just keep this in mind. It's kind of a scrap, but it's a scrap that's full of love, Zach. And that's the thing to remember.
All right, that's a good thing to do. Myself, I did not have those type of accomplishments in the year. 2020 was the first time in I think close to 10 or 12 years where I did not play an organized game of rugby. So it was the first calendar year where I did not play an organized game of rugby since I started playing rugby. But
Okay, wait.
yeah,
So you've been playing rugby since what, sophomore year in high school?
yeah, so 2008, 2009, something around then.
All right. And you've been in an organized, either a league or a school team or yeah, that's what you've been in, right? In leagues and schools things since then, through college and into law school.
Yeah, so for me, I did not have that opportunity this year for the COVID related reasons. But to fill that hole, I started kind of doing stuff more for me. And one of those things is I started seeing a therapist for my anxiety and depression, which has helped kind of allow me to focus on what I want my life to be and kind of how to go forward with the fact that like I know how I work and these are the things that work for me and how to, understand and own that into living an authentic life.
Yeah, I got to imagine that this kind of conversation here right now, Zach, and I'm sure for the people who are listening are like, did he just admit to doing that? But I think a lot of people go through a lot of stuff, and we've been around people, Zach, that their anxiety and their depression has caused them to do things that are, how should I say it, highly untoward. And I think we're all cognizant of this idea that if you're going through something, get people that can help you get through it. And sometimes the only way out is through. So that's a great thing to do. Take advantage of the resources that are available and get yourself the help you need to do the things you need to do.
You mentioned it with the phrase "the only way out is through," and that's kind of a good phrase for me to use as 2020 as a whole. It was a difficult year, but by me kind of owning the fact that I've lived with this anxiety and this depression for a majority of my adult life and being able to combat and move forward with this, we're fighting through, or there's an end goal and we want to get through, and having the support of, family and friends and a therapist to kind of, work and mold me into like being this best version of myself where I can continue to fight and continue to get up and I can continue to, be who I am and provide a lighter side of life. Um, yeah, it's been difficult, but having the ability for myself to admit that I've gone through this and I'm now on the other side of it or coming towards the end of that tunnel and I can see how I want to live. It's there's power in that. There's strength in that.
Yeah, and that's something I think we would all be, if we're all honest, and this is a hard thing to do, is be honest. The easiest person to fool is yourself, right? And it's difficult to be honest with yourself. And when things aren't going the way you want them to go, or you're feeling that it just doesn't feel right, then the honest thing to do is to seek somebody, something, some method, some person to help you get through these things. It's very rare that you can come up with a situation that it's just going to change. You're going to wake up one morning, things are going to be different. We go through, we morph and we change and we grow. And a lot of it is understanding yourself and being true to who you are yourself and helping you get through some of those things that maybe aren't quite as good.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way to put it. And I started doing that last February. So it's almost been a year of me working and seeing my therapist over these issues. And the work I started to do in February created, despite, all the craziness that was, especially the summer of 2020 with riots and protests and, me studying for the bar exam and all these other issues going on, that I've been able to use that as a strength to move forward.
Now you're in Minneapolis, so there were a lot of riots and protests and things going on in May and June, July when you got in your area. I mean, some of us were in areas where there were active things going on, and other people were not. So so things got even heavier than COVID for Minneapolis.
Yeah, there was a lot of this look at life in this, at least in my friend group, this retrospective understanding of the role we play in society. Especially a lot of my friends in Minneapolis are lawyers or aspiring lawyers, and understanding that that position of an attorney creates it is a position of power, and using that power to help others in need or to authentically put people in positions where they can be continually successful, or if they haven't been successful, so that they can be successful. And I think that's an important thing I've saw a lot in myself, and I've seen it in a lot of my friends as well.
Well, that's one of those things, right? There's no, why else would you, that's the question you got to answer. Why else would you want power other than to help other people, right? That's a big separator, right? If you're going to look at, I have power and I'll use it to advance myself, well, that's not really bad unless you're doing that at the expense of others. And I think all the leadership stuff I've ever seen and I've read about and I've ever been a part of, real leaders become leaders by helping the people that they are charged with leading. And anytime you have power, you ought to use that for good, right? With great podcasts come great responsibilities. Is that what they say, Zach?
That's the phrase. It also reminds me of a quote from a book that's itself not very profound. But the quote is, I don't do the things I do for power, glory, or wealth. I don't care that the world doesn't know my name. I'm quite happy about that. I do the things I do for my friends and family that make life so special.
Where's that from?
That is from the Matthew Riley book, Three Sacred Cities. Three Secret Cities, my bad. So,
Well, now you've read a lot of Matthew Riley, and those I'm sure we have a couple podcast listeners out there who have listened to Matthew Riley or have read a number of his books. And you've read
me talk about his books.
Yeah, there's a series of them. There's a sequence 7 this, 6 that, 5 is it's like the 12 Days of Christmas, but in adventure novels, right?
Nice. I like that.
And but he talks about a lot of things with like history and ancient civilizations and stuff like that. It's kind of interesting stuff. But his characters have some depth to them.
Yeah, they have some.
That is one of those things.
Humanity to them. They're not just super soldiers, James Bond saving the day. Hoorah! On to the next one. There's some human to it, and I think there's some human in all of us. And I think maybe if we embrace it a little bit more, be kind to our neighbor, be kind to each other, we can move forward and we can go through onto the next thing, and we can celebrate other things that we did in 2020. Like Rafe, I know you did a lot more than just make a bunch of tables.
Yeah, I did make more than sawdust and tables. One thing that I got to do, it's interesting about the whole COVID thing. People look at the negatives of that, and there were a lot of negatives. Don't get me wrong. There was a lot of people that aren't with us now because of that, and that's a big negative. But there were some positives as well, and you have to look at that sort of thing. I used to travel, Zach. As you know, I work from home, and so I sit in this same little chair.
You worked from home before it was cool.
I did work from home, right? I've been working at home for well over 2 years now, and this is the same chair I'm sitting right now as my work chair. So it's those can get to be long days, and occasionally we'd travel back to the home office, and I'll say this, Zach, the COVID thing got me to stay home all the time. I didn't travel, and that's kind of a nice thing. I put it this way: I said I miss going places that I would go, but I don't miss traveling. And those of you who have traveled on a regular basis, I remember when I was young, first starting my career, we'd have business meetings in places, and it was there was a certain thrill of travel. And as you get old, the travel is just unless it's something really fun. I don't miss travel. I miss going places. I miss seeing people in person that I work with on a regular basis. I just see them over the computer screen. But I miss going places, but I don't miss the traveling.
Yeah, that's a good point. You miss the moments and the time spent with the people that you might be traveling with or where you're going, but you don't miss the fanfare and the extra steps that you have to go through just to, go to a work conference.
Yeah, and that's a lot of it is airline travel, and that has become it's unfortunate. It's become very, very it's a very painful thing. At least for me, it is. It's there's a lot of hurry up and wait, and a lot of I'm not much of a rule follower, Zach. I don't know if you knew that.
Really, you don't like following rules.
I'm not much into rules. And so those, the airport to me is not my favorite place, but I understand the necessity of it. And if I used to go to Vancouver quite a bit. And if you would have told my grandfather, like there were a couple times I did like 2-day trips. I'd leave like on a Monday morning and I'd be back Wednesday night. And if you would have told him, 60 years ago that you're going to wake up in Nashville one morning, you're going to go to Vancouver, stay there for 2 days, and you'd be back on Wednesday night, he'd be like, you're insane. There's no way you can do that. And I did that. I'd fly there in like 6 hours or so, give or take, with layovers. And it's a miracle. It's a miracle. It's not a painless miracle, but travel is really a miraculous thing. Certainly global travel now, and it is it's remarkable. There's a lot of things we have that are still remarkable. But I don't miss air travel. I do miss getting to see the benefits of air travel. But, there's a couple other things that I got to do because of that, Zach. And one of them is, we do a lot of Lego things and we do a lot of Lego shows. And one person that I would always meet at the Lego show that I would go to on a regular basis in the summer is America's favorite rocket scientist, Bob Luzinski. And it was very fortunate that we did a number of virtual online Lego shows, and Bob and I spent a lot of time together chatting about machines that people make with Lego stuff. And we did a lot of virtual Lego shows over the course of the year. And it was working with a guy like Bob is a wonderful thing to do. And that was a really nice thing. I got to go to the Lego shows, hang out with my friends, and never left my room.
Yeah, that's a fun thing to do. Plus, you're working with Bob, and that's really not really work. We've had him on the podcast. He's just a fun time, and you get to share that, mutual love of Lego and machinery with other people around the world. There's a joy to that. Despite the fact that you're confined to a room, you get to still share this devotion you have for something outwardly onto the world. And that's something that a lot of people may not realize that we get the opportunity to do on a daily basis.
Yeah, it is remarkable what we're doing. I look, you're not old enough really to remember what it was like, Zach. I remember when I first got my first job, I had just gotten out of graduate school, and my advisor after graduate school, he moved from Colorado State University to University of Queensland, Australia. He was an Australian native, and he went back, and we would send faxes back and forth. And I remember one day standing at the fax machine in Kansas City where I was working at the time, and I had just faxed him the latest copy of the paper that he and I and another guy were writing. And I thought to myself, it was an interesting feeling because it was broad daylight there in Kansas City, and which means it was darkness in Australia where he was. And I remember thinking, when I hit this button, there's this telecommunications stuff that there's a box on the other side of the world. And when I hit it, it's going to there's a little light that's going to blink, and the paper is going to start rolling, and it's going to be like magic. And they say any suitably advanced technology is virtually indistinguishable from magic. And I think we live in this magic age. Right now, I'm looking at this computer screen, and I see you sitting in Minneapolis, waving your fingers at me and giving me signals that I should shut up and give it back to you. But it's a miraculous age, folks. We need to really, really appreciate where we are.
Yeah, I think that that perfectly actually transitions into a takeaway I had from 2020 about this idea of being present in the moment and appreciating what we have around us, even if we are stuck at home doing the same thing over and over again.
Yeah, it has come to me, there are, and I say this probably too often because I say most things too often, basically because I talk too often, but I wake up every day and I'm thankful that I didn't wake up on a trash dump in Jakarta. I mean, there are people that live on the trash dump in Jakarta. That's what they wake up in the morning. It's trash all around them. They struggle to find water that may be collected in an old can to drink. They dig through the scraps of trash to get metal to sell so they can make it to tomorrow. And we are in this miraculously wonderful place. And Oh, what a great thing. So today, when a good thing happens to you, stop and think, you know what? Life never was like this before. And as bad as it might be now, and there are some things that are bad, don't get me wrong, there are some bad things. As bad as it is, it used to suck, like really bad. And we should just be grateful every day that that we're standing on the shoulders of giants, and they put us in a great position.
Yeah, I think you nailed it on the head when you said if a good thing happens to me, we should kind of slow down and appreciate that moment, appreciate that conversation. Earlier this week, I had a 15-minute conversation with a friend in the cold in a parking lot in Minnesota. And we just kind of just talked about life and just kind of figured out, this is where we are and this is the things we want to do going forward. And it was one of those slow down, appreciate the moment and be present with what you're doing. There was no outside. I wasn't worried about work I had to do. I wasn't worried about homework that I had to do. I wasn't worried about what am I going to eat for breakfast. Like it was just like I'm here in this moment with a friend talking about life. And so much of the time we get distracted by our smartphones and our smart watches and our smart glasses and our smart clothes. That sounds like a thing that we
And
forget
our big brain smart heads.
those as well, and that we forget about dedicating the time to being with the people we're around and being in the moment of what is happening. And for me, because I was able to slow down, because I was able to reflect on myself as an individual and what I bring to the table, I was able to have, as the year went on, more of these type of moments and more of this appreciation for what I have going for me, what I have in front of me, and what I want to and what I will achieve.
Yeah, I remember it very vividly. I mean, we probably all have these things. I remember being in school when I was in high school and I was involved in a group, and for me it was like the perfect group. It was like all my friends were there, and everything was perfect except for there was two guys that were just like, man, this, like, if these guys weren't in this group, it would be perfect. And then one day it struck. I remember where I was and what I was doing, that I suddenly realized, wait a minute. If these guys here weren't here, it'd be perfect. But if all my other friends weren't here, and it would really suck, And it's a half full, half empty thing. And you can talk about power of positive thinking and all that, and trying to, no one's telling you that that COVID's good. I'm not going to tell you that. But you know what? There's so much good that it doesn't do you any good to just focus on the bad stuff. Get the good out in front of you, be appreciative, and appreciate what you got.
Yeah, I think you nailed it with your talk about like COVID has been bad. Like that I'm not gonna sugarcoat that. There's no point to sugarcoat it. COVID has been bad. Bad things have happened and things have been difficult for a lot of people. But just because the negative thought is there, just because it exists, does not mean that you have to give it credit. You can acknowledge it, you can see what it is, and then you move on to it. You progress forward and through, like we mentioned earlier. Like the idea that we have to be like, oh my God, COVID, this is bad, is not a good train of thought, because then you get trapped in the thought of negativity and negativity. People can talk about, well, if you're always, spreading positivity, that's bad and toxic. And I've seen people post about that stuff. And I'm not saying that that's what I do. What I'm saying is acknowledge the negative thought, see that it's there, and then move past it. It doesn't need to be the thing that controls you. The thing that should control you is spreading the good and being kind to others and waking up and appreciating the moments where you can surround yourself with the people that you love and care about.
Yeah, that's the speaking of surrounding ourselves with people I love and care about. We got back recently. Another good thing from 2020 was I got back last week from meeting for the first time my new granddaughter, and this would be your
Niece.
niece. Look at us understanding genealogy. All right, and
Just on TV.
we are genealogists, podcasters, and genealogists. Add that to the masthead, would you, Zach? All right. But I met a granddaughter. It's interesting. My daughter asked me one time, she says, what is it like? What was it like? What was your first thought when you had your first kid? And I remember thinking, some people are like overwhelmed and some people are awestruck and other people don't know really what to think. And I told her, that it was like, when you go out in the woods and you're walking around through the woods, Zach, and you turn over a rock and like, oh my goodness, look, a salamander. And and they're always colorful and interesting. And you never know if you're really going to get one there. That was
There's
a
a lot
thought.
of wonder.
There was a lot of wonder. And that is the thing. I'm always stunned. Zach drives your mother nuts that I'll be out and I'll do that. I'm still at 50 some years old. I flip over rocks and I look underneath them and we'll be driving along and I'll say, oh, look, a hawk, and hey, I saw a bald eagle last week. Did I tell you that? Yeah. I was in North Carolina visiting the granddaughter and saw a bald eagle, and I haven't seen one of those in a long time. And it's just, there's got to be an appreciation of the wonder there. And I like every day I wake up, I'm happy I'm not on a trash dump in Jakarta. And I'm like, but it's a wonderful stuff. Like, Zach, I went to the bathroom and I turned the knob, water came out, clean, drinkable water. It was a miracle. It's a wonderful thing. But there's all sorts of other things. Sun comes up in the east, sets in the west, stars, you got weather, it's just, there's a lot of natural wonder out there.
Yeah. Wonder and childlike wonder are wonderful things to appreciate and understand. And for me, that childlike wonder manifested itself again for me this summer when I spent a lot of time alone in nature, walking through all the thousands of parks and open nature areas that Minnesota has. I was able to take time out of my day and commit to spending time and enjoying and appreciating the salamanders and the trees and the stars and the sky. And that was something I haven't done since, high school. It was so good to get back.
Did you have a favorite park there in Minneapolis, or?
I like Minnehaha Falls, which is just south of me. It's like a 20-minute drive. It opens right onto the Mississippi if you go far enough, and you can skip some rocks, which is always fun. And then if you do it right, you can skip a rock across the Mississippi. So I enjoy that. But I think
didn't George Washington skip rocks across the Mississippi, or is that the wrong story?
I think that's the wrong story.
Oh, all right. Well, that's okay.
It's a good story in your head, probably. Yeah, but like we found this childlike wonder for nature and spending time in this exploration idea that I think for so long that I was lacking and I missed. And 2020 gave me the opportunity to go back to it and to appreciate it and to wonder again in the wonderfulness of the wilderness and the nature. And I think that's, again, like all of these things that I've done and all of this, there's this theme throughout all my things I've learned from 2020 of this idea of growth and individualism. There we go. Individualism and appreciation for what I have around me. And I am so, as bad as it sounds, I'm so thankful for having 2020 give me that, because I don't think I would have had it without COVID and some of the other things that came across.
So with all these good things with the bad things and the good things that came out of 2020, is that affected how you are planning to attack and deal with 2020's little sister of 2021?
Yeah. So early on in 2021, I saw people complaining that they didn't like their 7-day free trial of 2021 and they wanted to go back. And I'm just like, there's no place to go back. I want to go forward. I want to go upwards and onwards, and I want to keep chasing and climbing the mountain, and insert whatever phrase you want to add here for me. But also because I was able to reflect and learn about myself a lot more in 2020, 2021 for me, I have, some goals and things I want to achieve. Like I want to spend a week in nature, just kind of reflecting back on my childhood and being present in the trees and on the lake and in the snow and in the dirt. I want to,
So you're planning to fall into the creek and swing from the tree like you used to, and right? That's part of the plan.
Yeah, well, I mean, I might get a lot more injured now, so I might have to be a lot smarter about the way I do that.
All right, it's all good.
But For me, I've mentioned, the Zachisms, and I want to create those into a book. I want to finish that book by the end of the year.
Yeah, you're working, but you're working on a number of other things too, right?
Yeah, I have a certification I'm going to finish at the end of March for applied data science from Dartmouth. And then I'm going to take the bar again this summer, and I'm going to pass it because that's where my mindset is, and that's how I'm going to go and attack and go forward.
Well, it's going to be the year is what you're going to make it, right? And there are things that are curveballs are going to show up. You might get hit by a pitch. Insert your favorite sports cliche or whatever you want. The only way out of any of these things is through. And I don't remember where that's from. It might be from a Spider-Man movie for all I know, but it's there are worse things than cliches as long as they're true. So, 2021 can be a very good year, and it's all what you make it.
Yeah, and then I mentioned earlier about my anxiety and depression, and I'm going to continue to have a focus on my mental health and making that a priority for me. So a lot of that is using my phone less and being present in the moment and appreciating the people around me. And then because I'm Zach, I would not end a goal or a year without the idea of have fun and just kind of embrace what comes at you and make the most of a bad situation if bad situations are presented.
Yeah, it doesn't do any good. Everybody has got something bad going on, right? And if you ever want to feel, if you need to get yourself up because you're down, just look around, and there's somebody out there that's got a worse situation, and don't sit there and taunt because it sucks what they're going through, but lend a hand, and that will help you get up and going in the right direction.
Yeah. So the question back to you and the question to our listeners is, how are you going to make the best of your 2021?
Well, that's a great question. It's started off pretty well. I learned how to do some things in my workroom that I didn't know how to do. I've just started working on that. I have a couple little projects planned. I don't have quite the same career goals that you do per se. We have some very important
career. So,
well, you're starting and I'm winding down, but we have some very important work we're doing for cancer patients that we work very hard to help them have the best life they can have. And we're trying to work through all the COVID things and all the regulatory things that we have to get done for getting medicines to patients. I got a granddaughter now. They got to figure out how to, I don't know whatever she needs, whatever her parents need, we're going to take care of that. And you got a sister and a brother.
Jerseys.
What was it? Hockey jerseys? Yes, I think we need to get some little mini hockey jerseys for the new granddaughter. So, but we're going to work through that, and I'm going to work to try to keep from getting overwhelmed. I get the stress too, Zach. I get stress and I get the migraines, and it costs me a day. And every time that happens, I say, you know what? I need to not to, and to quote Mater from what was that? From Cars, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I need to not to get the stress. And, at the end of the day, a lot of that work is going to be there tomorrow, whether I finish it tonight or not. And if there's a deadline, I got to hit them. But on the other hand, there are times it's not beneficial. Sometimes you got to call it quits, do a little rest and recharge. I got to get my exercise. I'm meeting with our workout guy starting again tomorrow morning.
There we go.
Done with Christmas. So hopefully that will make me even more buff nagly.
Nice. I see what you did there.
Yeah, thanks. That's my plan.
All right. That's a good way to look at 2021, a good way to reflect back on 2020 as a whole. And to all of our listeners, I challenge you to write down something good that happened in 2020 and use it as a springboard into what you want your 2021 to be. To all my friends and family listening, thank you for all the support and helping me get to where I am today, because it's been a journey and it's been difficult, and I'm now living the best of my life and living that authentically, and I couldn't do it without you guys. So I'm thank you and thankful for that.
Yeah, I want to say that too. Is like we would be nobody without the folks around us, and a lot of people are really, I'm going to go do it myself. I'm a big fan of I live in the helper mode. I want to help, and I would like help in return. So I am very appreciative of everything. Everything I have has been given to me. I deserve none, and it has all been a gift. And I'm grateful for all those gifts, especially the one that comes at Christmas and Easter. So that's where I am, Zach. I think that pretty much ends this little foray into the end of 2020. I think we'll put a bow on 2020 and put it on the shelf here officially.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to look at it. And be kind to others and spread the good, and take care of those around you, and make 2021 the best it can be.
All right, that's wonderful, Zach. I'm going to sign off. We'll talk to you again next week, and we got some great episodes coming up, folks. And we got, what, Zach, we don't have what we have now, what we didn't have before, which is like a schedule of upcoming things. And
yes.
So that's going to make
schedules and plans and notes, and we have organization for the first time in the history of this podcast. So we're going to hope that continues on through the rest of the year, and you guys join us for this journey.
Yeah. So send us your notes and questions and comments. We heard some great feedback today on some things we had and had not been doing. And we're looking forward to spending the year with you guys. And if any of you if you have something neat to tell us, something you could teach us, something you could share with us, something that just helps the world be a better place and shows us the adventures of life, then let us know, and we'd love to have you guys on.
Yeah, that sounds like a great plan. Well, I'll see you guys next time, and we'll take care.